So hello there, welcome to Damien's Trains and Travels. Welcome to the video. In this video I'll be showing you 10 figures of the characters from Chicken Run, a movie that came out in the year 2000, which actually makes it 25 years old this year. And there was a sequel to it called Dawn of the Nuggets. And it's quite weird actually, because these figures, I actually got these off the internet, and they came in these boxes, and there's two boxes, so you've got one set with Rocky's Roost and one with Ginger's Gang, so different characters, and inside it there's like a little leaflet that says thank you for getting the characters, and these actually came with packs of Weetos. I'm assuming you could order them separately, I'm not too sure. It comes this little leaf at the bottom is the address of the Weetabix factory in Kettering, which if you drive down the A509 to Kettering you can actually see it, and then actually just around the corner from there used to be the Odeon Cinema, which is where I actually saw this film, so it's not all that far away from where I live now. And that Odeon Cinema has actually now closed down, and it's weird because when I was younger we used to go to cinemas quite a lot, and like say this film was out in the cinema, and like the latest Wallace and Gromit film and Dawn of the Nugget have only been available on Netflix, and it was on BBC One on Christmas Day, Vengeance Most Foul, which I've got recorded, and I don't actually have Netflix, but a friend of mine does. And you may remember when I did my review on the Wrong Trousers train chase set that I had some models out of the box. It was actually her models that I used, and when I went around her house we actually watched Dawn of the Nugget recently, because she had Netflix and I don't have it. You know, and personally I'd prefer to have like a DVD, like a hard physical copy. You know, obviously nowadays there's so much stuff online. Like I said, it used to be like, again when my parents were younger, you know, you used to have the cinemas for films, obviously, and then stuff on TV separate. But like now, with technology and smart TVs and that, there's just so many other ways to view things as well now. Like I said, I'd personally rather have a DVD, and it's like as well, I mean, I've got old VHS tapes. Obviously no one buys VHS tapes anymore, but when I was younger that was quite common, VHS tapes, and I've still kept some of mine for collection purposes. And it used to be like you watch the film in the cinema and then you sort of buy the VHS tape or the DVD afterwards. And like I said, I'd still rather have a DVD, because at least it's there for me to watch whenever then, sort of thing, really. And for me, I think particularly when I was at school, like the cinema was a social sort of thing, and everyone used to talk about what was on at the cinema, from what I recall. And again, like I said, we had VHS tapes, and I remember when I was in year 4 and when I was at senior school, sort of end of term towards Christmas, we actually watched Chicken Run on a VHS tape in class. We didn't actually do anything sort of educational, it was sort of like the last day of term, and it was only like a half day as well. And I remember over the years going to the cinema to see lots of different films, including Stuart Little, and I've actually got this toy of Stuart Little as well, as you may have seen in my other videos, and this toy of Ginger too. I've had them for years. And Chicken Run was created by Aardman, who did obviously Wallace and Gromit and Creature Comforts, Morph, Rex the Runt, and a number of other shows, as you probably know, which I absolutely loved. But for me, out of all the characters, Wallace and Gromit definitely my favourite, and I think particularly with obviously Wallace and Gromit, there's just so many opportunities for them to get up to things, and that way, I suppose, in some ways, I think with chickens you are a little bit limited, personally. And the sequel, as I saw around my friend's house, and I thought that it was good and it was okay, but we both said that we both preferred the original, and also I think another thing as well was we preferred the voice cast with the original ones. Like, not all of the actors from the previous film were in the sequel, and Benjamin Whitrow and Tony Haygarth, who did the voices of Fowler and Mr Tweedy, both passed away, but Mr Tweedy wasn't actually seen in the second film. And something that we thought was a little bit strange was that Mrs Tweedy is still called Mrs Tweedy, even though she isn't married to Mr Tweedy in the new film. So he is sort of referenced, but yeah, she's still called Miss Tweedy, even though she's not married to him anymore. But we thought it was a good film, and I suppose in some way she would still have to be called the same character, because if you change the name of the character it wouldn't be entirely the same, so I can sort of understand, I guess, really. But like I said, I much preferred the original one, and for me there were some very dramatic scenes, like when they're in the pie machine and when they're trying to escape and things like that. And like I said, I've got 10 figures here altogether, and as you've probably seen, I've got some other little figures that came with packs of cereal and tea bags and various things over the years as well. that I've shown in my other videos. And I've also got these Creature Comfort ones that came with packs of cereals as well, like Kellogg's and that as well. And again, Creature Comfort's a show that I quite liked that Aardman produced as well. And it's really weird actually, because before Dawn of the Nugget, which came out in 2023, which would have been 23 years after the first film, there was an advert that Aardman did for Google, and it shows like on Google Chat the different characters all talking to each other. And it's funny, Gromit's got a chicken, and then Wallace is talking to Ginger, and Gromit's trying to hide the chicken. And yeah, that was quite hilarious. And also it's weird as well, because you see Wallace talking to Paella, but then Paella died at the end of A Matter of Life and Death, and also I doubt Wallace would want to speak to her again, because obviously she tried to kill him. But I suppose if you sort of ignore it separately, maybe if you imagine that it took place during the film before that happened, maybe it would make some sense. I mean, maybe it's me just being a bit nitpicky, but it's not just myself. I noticed when you could obviously comment on the videos, because some of the children's related videos you can't always comment on now, but when you can, everyone was saying, hang on a second, what's Paella doing there? She died, and and why is Wallace still talking to her and all that sort of thing. So it wasn't just myself, other people said the same thing as well. I noticed. Common sense lies on where really. But it was nice to see the chickens again in that, and again in the new film as well. Although there's been some characters that Aardman have created that you only sort of see like once or twice sort of thing really, and obviously it depends on what happened to the character during the film, but obviously Ferris McGraw come back in the latest one, and it made sense, and Aardman done a good job and it worked. But then sometimes, there's other characters, like I know Victor Quartermain, for example, if he appeared again, it wouldn't make any sense, because I think it's better to leave it sort of open-ended as to what happened to him at the end of the film, personally. That's my personal thoughts. But going back to all these figures, out of all these, my favourite ones would have to be Rocky and Ginger, obviously the two main characters, and Fowler and Mr Tweedy. And I think the detail on these is absolutely superb. Again, my only sort of criticism would be is obviously when you see Mr and Mrs Tweedy, next to each other, they look absolutely fine, but then the chickens are almost the same size as them, which they shouldn't be. I mean, I suppose these are only meant to be small figures at the end of the day, but it made more sense if they were a lot bigger. And I mean, Mr Tweedy's almost about the same size, or only a little bit taller than some of the characters, whereas Miss Tweedy was obviously a bit taller than that. But even so, they're not really that far off the chickens, really. So scale-wise, not 100%, but I think they've still got superb detail all the way around on all of them, on both the front and the back of them. And if you look underneath them, it tells you the year they were made, and that made in China. It says the names of the characters underneath them as well, which I think is quite good. It says these were made in 1999, so I'm assuming they were made sort of for production the following year before these come out. Because from what I remember, they came out in the year 2000, which was the same time Chicken Run came out. So probably made the year before, 1999, which is what it says underneath them. And again, Chicken Run was like the first feature-length film that Aardman done, and then obviously since then they have done others as well. And, as well as obviously the films and that, I always like seeing what goes on behind the scenes and that as well. And, it's quite interesting seeing all the little, if you think about it when you watch the film, all like little things you see in the background, like I know, like this one, the bakery for example, all the cakes and things like that in the background, little things. You must feel a sense of pride as an animator or designer if you've made something and it appears in the background, but then it only appears for a few seconds or it's a bit out of focus in the background. Maybe you feel a bit annoyed. I don't know, but it sort of reminds me as well of a museum I went to in Oxfordshire called the Pendon Museum, where literally everything is hand built, like and all the details of everything, which is quite fascinating. So like all the brickwork on the houses and trees and plants and things like that, and even like the locomotives themselves, everything being sort of scratch built on that. So I always find it interesting sort of what goes on behind the scenes as well as actually what you see in the final film as well. And I think as well, for me, I mean, when I was younger, there was a lot of shows that were all made using stop motion, and if it wasn't sort of stop motion, it was either made like using puppets or something else sort of thing. Whereas like now, when you think about it, like literally everything nowadays is CGI animated, and Aardman did do a CGI film called Flushed Away, and they've done other films as well. And I wasn't as keen on them. I know other people weren't as well. And I much prefer stop motion personally. And I mean, I'm sure there's obviously been special effects with the later films that have been added into them as well. But I think it's great that Aardman still does sort of stop motion. It's always, it's for me, it's quite nostalgic. It reminds me of sort of, again, what I used to watch when I was younger as well. And it makes a change to everything just being CGI all the while. And I think as well, particularly like with Wallace and Gromit as well and the other films, you see a lot of hidden jokes in the background and our British humour, which I don't think that, they have in other countries personally. And I know a lot of other people said that you can't sort of beat British humour, and I sort of agree. Obviously, I've lived in this country all my life, so, another ongoing reference I've always thought as well with the Aardman films is that you see a lot of garden gnomes. And it's funny, actually, Rocky, before I decided to make this video, a friend of mine who posts videos online for a group called Tuesday Gang, a model of Rocky actually appeared in the background of that recently, before I decided to make this video. Then after Chicken Run, 5 years later, we got Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and that was quite a year for films, because I remember as well you got Robots and The Magic Roundabout. It's weird actually, Robots I actually bought recently in a charity shop, and I got a load of other DVDs as well, because the charity shop was actually closing down, and there was like bundles of DVDs for like £1, and so I just bought you could get so many in that they were just trying to clear stuff, so I think I paid £1 and got loads of DVDs. And there's some stuff here that I probably wouldn't have watched otherwise, but it's actually been quite interesting. Other stuff that I would have happily watched anyway, so it wasn't a complete waste. And that, and I think just, if the opportunity's there, just make the most of it, whatever is there basically, which is what I did. Like I said, I bought all these figures online, and I know in the past I've made a thing saying that it's important to support local shops and things like that, but then the thing is as well, these figures here, like I saw some of them in not so good condition with bits like broken off and things like that, car boot sales, and when I've been to rallies and seen them on stalls and market stalls and things like that, and in my opinion they were just a bit too pricey for the condition of what they were, whereas I got these all online together for a good price. And, they're all in, I think you agree, fairly good condition. I can't see anything that's really wrong with any of these. But I have occasionally seen ones like this that are a lot worse. But then again, some of my other figures that I've got, I have brought on, market stalls and things like that, and charity shops and that, quite cheap. So sometimes it's good to buy stuff online, and other times it's better not to. Obviously, it depends what you're looking for and what you're after. But like I said, there's 10 figures altogether. And here's a better look at them all, and thank you very much for watching.